Hi, and welcome to another episode of Newsmakers Journal of the Plague Year. It is Friday, December 11th, and we are talking with our local all-star panel of journalists, Delaney Smith from The Independent, Josh Molina from Newshawk. Thank you both for being with us. So things are not trending well in the pandemic. I think we had 172 new cases on Wednesday. We're averaging about 140. Although our ICU beds are still about 50% unoccupied, nevertheless, we are in with the Southern California region under Gavin Newsom's new order, which links to that ICU figure. Delaney, what's going on with that? I know that there's been a lot of unhappiness about being in a region that's as big as Ohio and
Wow.
has twice as many people as Ohio, and about 65% of the people in California. The supervisors are trying to get us broken off into a smaller segment. What's the story with that?
Yeah, so we're currently part of this massive region that it consists of 11 counties. And what we're trying to do is break off into 3 counties, just SLO, Ventura, and Santa Barbara. And I personally, I don't see the state actually allowing that. But what our Board of Supervisors is doing is it is collaborating with Ventura and with SLO and writing a joint letter asking to basically like secede from this region and make its own Central California region that would just have the 3 counties. It would have like 10 million less people in it. And we would have a much greater chance of actually being able to reopen businesses. But again, it doesn't really look likely that the state is going to go for that. It's more of, I feel like it's more of a gesture on the supervisor's part to let the public know that they are on their side. But I don't think it will work.
Yeah, because the other thing is even if the state went for it, my understanding is it would take 3 weeks. We would be past Christmas already when numbers would be going up.
Right. And a lot of businesses at every supervisor's meeting, they continually come to public comment and they say, we don't have 3 weeks. Like even 3 weeks, many businesses won't survive that.
Yeah. Well, Josh, you had a good piece about the business response to the latest stay-at-home order. And I guess, businesses were kind of looking, at least they would have the holiday season to try to bail them out from all of the other problems they've had all year. What did you find?
Yeah, well, businesses had thought the worst was behind us and that we weren't going to have another stay-at-home order. And they were already struggling from the restrictions that had been put in place prior. And so when the governor announced that we were going to do this thing in December, it really took the wind out of a lot of people's sails, because Christmas and the holiday season is usually the time where people make the most amount of money that they do all year. And so it's definitely very personal now. It was political before, but anybody who wanted to give Governor Newsom the benefit of the doubt, I think now it's fully turned on him and how he do this at this time in December. We know cases are high, but again, it's sort of like everybody in government has bad mean with everything, and they're kind of a step behind. It would have been better to have stronger restrictions before the holiday season and not have to shut everything down in December. And I think that people are just very frustrated. People are very concerned that they may not make it out this time. And we're seeing that from restaurants. We're seeing that for retail. We're seeing that for basically every type of business.
Well, the other thing that struck me in your story is that a lot of these businesses put a lot of money into, refurbishing or building parklets or whatever it was to meet the existing standards so that they would be able to operate it in a safe manner. And that's now all out the window. So
the outdoor dining was, I know you have not been down there, but many of them have created very expensive outdoor dining areas, and now they can't use that for 3 weeks. So in addition to the fact that they weren't able to seat as many inside, Now they've invested during the pandemic, and now they can't get anything back from that investment. So I think that it's a lot of mixed messages, right? Santa Barbara, the city council, the staff have wholeheartedly embraced outdoor dining on State Street. And sadly, they took advantage of the pandemic because they wanted to close State Street. And it was like the perfect storm. And so they closed State Street and they said, let's do this for the restaurants. Let's help them out with outdoor dining. So everybody's on board. People kind of like that. And now it's closed. And by the way, I did notice that they still have the public market downtown that they were promoting on social media, which was an interesting, again, mixed message.
They're open? The public market's open?
Yeah. Yeah, they were encouraging people to go. It's not called the public market. It's like it's like an artisan market on State Street, and on social media, they were encouraging people to come out. And
is that Marge's? Are you talking about Marge's project, Marge Caffarelli?
No, it's not. No, it's not that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you know, you mentioned the governor, and there was a poll that came out this week, said 58% of Californians support what he's doing. Half of the poll was taken before the revelations about him having his fine dining experience at the French Laundry. And the other thing that came out is that his companies, Plum Jack, even though he's operating under a quote unquote blind trust, his sister is operating the company, got $3 million in PPP money. So, you know, I think there's a drip about his handling of it. So, Delaney, you wrote about a protest last week against the new order. Who's attending that? And I guess there's another one coming up. Is it business people? I mean, is there a sort of a mainstream element to it, or is it kind of people?
I'm expecting, okay, so the one last weekend, it did not have a big mainstream element to it. No, it was more fringe residents who were against this order. They weren't actually business owners themselves. Many of them weren't wearing masks because they said that wearing masks was pseudoscience. They said that the virus itself could be comparable to a flu. So these weren't business owners. These were people who are also denying the virus itself. And I think we're going to see more of that this weekend. There's going to be 2 protests this weekend, both at noon actually, but one in State Street starting at Gutierrez, and then one in Montecito on Coast Village Road. The one on Coast Village Road is what I'm expecting to be more mainstream, and there should be actual business owners there as well. It's not going to be people just denying the virus. In fact, I expect this one to actually have people showing up masked, being more safe, but just protesting the fact that they can't survive their businesses being closed any longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to figure what could be done, you know, to do it other than, I know that in Riverside County, for example, you know, the sheriff's been very vocal. Hey, I'm not enforcing any of this. This is, and I think he called it ridiculous, the order. And, you know, businesses are just operating out in the open. Josh, is there any sense that you get from talking to business people that they're upset with the local officials, county officials, state officials for not pushing back more on the state, you know, being more aggressive in their representation of local commerce?
Just one thing, since I know people watch the show, and clarify when we talk, it's the State Street Promenade Market that they were advertising on social media to come out and support, you know, local merchants, which is a good thing. But it's just, again, the mixed message. You can do this, but you can't do that. Yes, and yes, to answer your questions. Businesses are upset that there is not anybody, any leadership from the city, from the county to say, no, we're not going to do this. We don't want to do this. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. The timing is poor. Now, they were a little bit happy, obviously, with the letter that Delaney talked about and trying to separate. That's like a little bit of progress, but they don't want to go along. They don't want to do this. State Street is already struggling, and they wish somebody would just defy the order. And obviously, Gavin Newsom is a polarizing governor, particularly because of the photo that appeared where he was breaking the rule himself. And so that's part of it too. It's sort of like, oh, there's almost like a two-tier, two-class system that they're pointing to. And I'm not saying that like I agree with that, but they're sort of saying the governor has his rules, but he wants everyone else to comply with these other rules. So to Delaney's point, the other protest on State Street is done by a small business owner. He's a Mexican American, and I don't know if he's conservative or not. I don't know his politics, but he just started his business. And what are they doing, Delaney? They're bringing a chair out or something.
Oh,
like
that's
that?
a whole other. That's
Yeah.
actually a fourth one. There's another one on State Street as well, though, Josh. It's going to start on Saturday at noon. That's separate than that. But Josh is talking about Yona Reds, and that's not actually a protest, or maybe it started out to be one and it kind of changed. But I went down there yesterday and I talked to the owner, and he said what they're doing now, which is not a protest in my opinion, is people can come on Sunday and he'll give them a free taco if they bring their own chair. But they don't then take the chair and dine there. They take the chair and dine elsewhere. His whole point is to encourage people to just eat outside and not take the food home and gather in someone else's home.
Well,
That was his point. It's kind of more of just a promotion. It's less of an actual protest at this point. But at first, he did advertise it as a protest on his Instagram, and a lot of people got upset. The post had to be taken down because
good idea. Really good. I mean, it's a great promotion. But just so hypothetically, if I'm a restaurant owner and then I put all this money into my parklet, and what if I just start serving? Are the cops going to come and arrest me? Is the sheriff going to come? Do you have any sense about enforcement? Because that's the other thing, is the county's always, we just want to persuade people. We don't want to enforce these laws. So it's kind of weird. I mean, the whole thing's weird because we have people sort of voluntarily acceding to this set of regulations to which they vehemently object. And you have law enforcement saying, well, we're not going to enforce it. So it's kind of
public health would have to enforce that. But I mean, I don't know. I can't see a business doing that without public health showing up and shutting them down. But again, look at Solvang right now. Nowhere, I'm not sure if you're aware, but nowhere in Solvang is following the order. Solvang just decided to not follow the order. And thus far, there's no enforcement. So that's going on in our county right now. Whether or not it comes down to the South County, we shall see.
Yeah, wow. And then Josh, I guess the other big local story about COVID this week was council member Oscar Gutierrez announcing at the end of this week's meeting that he has tested positive for COVID. What's the situation with that?
Well, it was a good J101 reminder to always stay until the end of the meeting, because this was a very long meeting involving a whole bunch of issues, including a very long appeal, a very confusing appeal. And during the end, when the council members make their committee and assignment reports, it's usually sort of I don't want to say a nothing thing, but it's usually not newsworthy. And Councilman Gutierrez said that he had contracted COVID, and he said publicly during the meeting that he asked his mother not to go somewhere for Thanksgiving and dinner, and she did, and that she came back and contracted the virus and gave it to him. He said during the public meeting. And so he was using it as an opportunity to educate other people, to say, hey, really, when the government says stay at home, because he's using himself as an example. Even he got it, and he's kind of aware of that. Like the thing that people may know or may not care about is that Oscar Gutierrez is the only council member who never goes to City Hall for council meetings. They all go to City Hall. They participate from their offices. Oscar's always at home in his living room the whole time. And so I think he's probably feeling a little frustrated because, hey, I'm the one who doesn't leave very much, and then I got the virus. He has gone to some events, like we have seen him outdoors. a couple of times, but for the most part, he stayed indoors. So he, you could say, is using his and the mother's example to take a bold stance.
Kind of an overshare, though, don't you think? I mean, a little bit of oversharing with TMI in that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that you can make the same argument without being specific, or you could educate the public. I mean, you could say a very close family member and let family members figure out who it is. I certainly probably, I mean, I would not say that. It's not essential to the story.
Well, yeah. So how is he? Have you talked to him, or do we know how he's doing, or if he's
As he has symptoms, I've noticed that across every post he's made on every social media account, he repeatedly says he has symptoms, but he doesn't really specify what those symptoms are. I don't know if Josh found that out, but it seems pretty general.
He said it was tough. It was difficult. He didn't mention breathing or fever or anything specific like that at all. I mean, I will say this, that there are people who believe that he's very brave. He's bold, he's honest, and he took a strong stand to use his mother and himself as an example to educate people, and that's why they take it seriously. And if we give him the benefit of the doubt, it is a bold, brave stance to do that, to educate the public that way. I don't know that he needed to go into that detail, though.
Yeah, well, we certainly wish him well. Oscar, get well soon, friend of the program, friend of all of us, and the same for your mom. Okay, so at the city council also, just to pivot a little bit here, Delaney, the council also voted to give 3 months relief for renters who are evicted, but it was not unanimous. There was quite a debate about that.
It narrowly passed. Yeah, it was a 4-3 vote. And this is something that's been talked about for years, especially in the last several months, though. So it was kind of a surprise that a few council members changed their minds and flipped on this. It was originally supposed to be 2 months worth of rental assistance. After the city got a study or a report done, some people in the council felt that should be bumped up to 3. Some felt it should still stay down at 2. And ultimately it passed at 3, with Kathy and Kristen and Megan and Oscar voting yes. But it was
yeah, I mean, your story, made it pretty clear. I mean, so we hire this consultant
right
to go out and gather data and figure out what the best thing to do is. And then, basically the 4 of them decide, well, whatever, I mean, it was just kind of, they didn't have any data on which they based that decision.
Right. And that was what Alejandra and Mike Jordan, both of them, very passive aggressively, because they didn't name anyone, but they said that other members of the council were making decisions based on their emotions, and not based off of fact. Kathy was not happy with that. She did not like hearing that. She immediately responded to that. And she said, actually, I didn't make any decisions based on my emotions. I made decisions based off of this consultant's report. And this report says that being a renter in Santa Barbara, it wasn't based on data. It was like being a renter in Santa Barbara is hard.
No, it was based on campaign. It was based on pandering to renters in her campaign for real life.
That is more what it could have come across like. Yes, but that's not what she said. Alejandra wanted to actually reopen the whole thing. She didn't to the public again and go through the process again. That was Alejandra's big thing. Mike Jordan didn't want to do that. He just wanted to go straight back to 2 months. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was struck by the mom and pop renter. I can't remember the name right now, who testified. Oh, look, this is 25% of my income for this property for the year. What am I supposed to do? I mean, it's just, there's no good answers. Well, speaking of consultants report, Josh, we had I guess they hired a consultant to provide some guidance on the, I don't want to say defunding the police, but reorganizing the police department to give more emphasis to social workers and helping, things that may have to do more with addiction and homelessness than with crime per se. 150,000, 149,000 bucks, and they threw it out the window. What was that all about?
Well, it was too much money. I think it was $149,000. This consultant reports. This consultant would have charged in order to look at what services could get moved away from the police department, what non-essential services. But it was very weird. It sort of felt like, how does it get this far without somebody saying something sooner?
Well, this was a staff recommendation to hire the consultant for that amount of money.
They'd already done an RFP. They'd already picked this consultant, and it was to the council for approval. This is an example of city staff being entirely out of touch and out of step with this issue, which is this issue related to whether to change the funding in the police department. They're just sort of moving very slowly, on pace, and not reading the room very well.
This originated because of the Black Lives Matter protest, correct?
Yes.
This was one of the demands to revamp the financing for the police department and the services. And so this was the staff response to that specific demand, correct?
Yes, this was their effort to study what non-essential services could be moved from the police department to other departments. But they gave this very robotic report. The truth is that Simone Ruskamp, who's one of the organizers of the original Black Lives Matter, she called in and she sort of laid it out very clearly, was that she went to the website. This is a majority of white men, retired military and police officers. And there were very few women or people of color. And why would you hire people who were part of this system to then take a look at what services should be moved out of this system? And it was sort of, again, a tone deaf sort of staff presentation. No sense of timing, no sense of context, no sense of being able to read the room. And then the council were like, this is too much money, because they're also forming this community formation commission. And they felt as though this consultant's report might get ahead of that. And maybe this commission might want to have some input on what defunding or what moving essential services out should look like. So if we have this consultant do it, and then they form the commission later, it could clash. So this could be a waste.
So they pushed it back on the staff and said, we need to have staff do it. And then Paul Casey said, no, we can't do that because we're stretched too thin.
Yeah, Paul Casey said, we don't have the expertise. This costs a lot of money. And they know what they're doing and we don't. And then he did the whole thing with, it's like a veiled threat. Well, if we're going to have to do this, we can't do this. So you tell us what you want us to not do.
Is it clear if the Citizen Formation Commission, which, is kind of a police review operation generically, is it going to have staff, or is existing staff going to do it? Because Megan Harmon made that argument. We're doing this whole new perspective and operation on things. Let's wait, which made sense to me, but it wasn't clear to me who's going to do the staff work for that. So if they want to do whatever it was that the consultant was going to do, who's going to do it?
Well, I think those are questions that are going to be answered by the commission, and they're still forming the commission. They haven't picked it. So I think the idea is, let's start with them. They're the ones that we're going to ask to figure out what the panel would look like. Let's start with them. Let's not do this other thing. It feels like City Hall is stalling, trying to complicate things, and this thing's going to take a long time. They asked for it in late May, early June. This is going to take a couple years before they do anything.
Well, yeah, I think Megan was right about that. She said we got to get it right, because if you create such a commission and it's, you put it together hurriedly to respond to political pressures and you don't have the substance of it right, you're going to make things worse, which the research I've done in other cities, that's an argument that makes a lot of sense. Elsewhere on the law enforcement front, Delaney, the sheriff, Bill Brown, said that there were far fewer pickups by ICE, by federal immigration authorities, of county jail prisoners this year. But nobody seemed to be happy with that on either side of the argument.
Yeah, so the data's a little behind the curve. We're talking about 2019 numbers here, and that is because at least Brown made it really clear several times that unless he's given more funding to his department, there will be no way for him to generate these reports earlier in the year. So looking at the year 2019, there were only, I think it was 32.
38 is what you reported.
How many?
38.
38. Okay, there's 38 then. There's 38 undocumented immigrants who were picked up by ICE in the year of 2019 in Santa Barbara County, which is a 60-something percent decrease from 2018 when there was 90-something of them picked up. So there is progress here, but what overwhelmingly, I mean, every single public commenter said was that is not enough, and they're looking for the Sheriff's Department to cut ties with ICE completely, and that the community won't be safe and people won't feel safe until they know that there is no tie to ICE. Several commenters cited other counties like LA that have done the same, but Brown was very adamant that that's not going to happen because there are some undocumented immigrants who commit crimes that are like so heinous that
I mean, he really pushed back with some specific cases. I mean, there were some really bad guys.
Right. And that was kind of the point. And it was interesting because he showed us a list of the charges of the immigrants who were picked up by ICE. And a lot of these guys they went through the county jail close to 20 times. It was, 10, 15, 17, 18 times that they were rearrested and put back out on the streets, rearrested. And that just shows that it does take a long time for them to get picked up. They're not getting picked up, at least from what Bill Brown is showing us anyway. They're not getting picked up because of petty theft. They're not getting picked up because they had some weed on them. If that's their only issue, then they probably won't even be sitting in the jail at this point because we're trying to keep the numbers so low in the jail.
Right. Well, it'd be interesting. I still believe deep in my heart that Joe Biden will become the president soon, and it'll be interesting to see the shift in immigration policy and how that affects us locally. Okay, well, we got to go. Josh, who's on the podcast this time? You still out there with Doss?
You're never going to listen to that one. I know.
I'm saving it for a special time.
Speaking of Yona Rads, I did a podcast with Yona Estrada, who's the 31-year-old owner of this restaurant. And he grew up on the West Side, tells his story of taking his mother's recipes, cooking in the backyard. All of a sudden, he's got a restaurant on the 500 block of State Street. So it's a really sort of good small business entrepreneur piece, but it's really a story of just like a guy who made it work through a lot of luck, a lot of help, and a lot of hard work.
All right. And what's the website again to find the podcast?
SantaBarbaraTalks.com.
SantaBarbaraTalks.com. Delaney, what are you working on for next time?
I'm actually going to do a profile on Susan Epstein because she's finishing up her 16 years on the board. And Josh, I hope you're not doing one. I don't know what the fuck I didn't mean to say the F word on the show. Okay. I don't know what you're doing with your hands, but I'm taking Susan. There's going to be a ceremony for her on Tuesday night. And then I'm also working on a lot, but that's what I'll go with for now.
We'll say this, Delaney, your story will be 10, 50, 100 times better than mine.
I'm so mad.
If you want a real story, read Delaney's, and if you want bullet points, read mine.
Are you going to go into the mystery of her dropping out of the supervisor's race, or is that so too much ancient history for you?
I don't want to do a puff piece. I want to do a real profile. So I'm going to get into.
I mean, that has never been written in detail. I mean, she's talked about why it happened, but at the time, I mean, it was really, everybody was like shaking their head, rolling their eyes, what the hell happened? And, it's a very human, sort of family-based story. So it would be interesting because I don't think anybody's independently reported it, even though she's talked about it. But far be it from me to make editorial suggestions. What do I know? All right, guys, thank you so much. Stay safe. We'll do one more before, let's see, next week is the 18th. We can do the 18th, right? And then we'll take the day off on Christmas just because. And meanwhile, happy Hanukkah to everyone. And we will see you next time on Newsmakers. Thanks.
Thanks, Jerry.